Your 20s are probably the most critical time of your life. The decisions you make in your 20s are going to put you on the path to success, or they're going to set you up for failure. So today I've got the full guide for you, how to ruin your life in your 20s. If you follow these steps, you'll be on the path to being broke and unhappy as you enter your 30s and beyond. And I do want to say, even if you've made some of these mistakes, as I know I have, you can always bounce back. But it's probably best to avoid them altogether. And leave a piece of advice in the comments below for someone you know who just turned 20, or you wish that someone had told you as you entered your 20s. That said, if you want to be broke and unhappy as you enter 30 and beyond, follow this blueprint. Step 1, surround yourself with the wrong crowd. Look, I firmly believe that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If your friends are healthy, if they take care of themselves, if they have ambition, they're more than likely gonna want what's best for you and encourage you to succeed. And that's gonna make a huge difference in your life. But unfortunately, that works both ways. In my late teens, early 20s, I used to hang around the wrong crowd. I used to hang around with people that used to drink every night, people that used to take drugs, people that used to sell drugs, you know, the gangster type that you see in movies like Scarface. Anyway, I found that I was getting significantly influenced by these people, and if I kept hanging around the wrong crowd, I would have completely fucked up my life. Your social network can be the biggest asset in your life, or it can be a destructive force that will ruin your life. So put effort into surrounding yourself with the right people, and you'll be surprised how much of a difference that makes in your life. The next way to ruin your life, that is step 2, and that's party too much. And of course, in my case, this went hand in hand with hanging out with the wrong crowd. When you party too much, a lot can go wrong. I've seen people, including myself, get injured, get in trouble, and make bad decisions that last a lifetime. The point is, your body is the only place you live, and it's best that you start treating it like a temple sooner rather than later. Of course, in your 20s, you can stay out till like 4 in the morning, get a few hours sleep, head to work by 9 and be okay. But as you get older, things get harder. If you go out and party on a Saturday night, you might be useless until Wednesday. And remember, partying too much isn't only bad from a health perspective, also a financial one too. Alcohol's expensive. I remember when I used to drink in my 20s and party, my whole paycheck would go to alcohol. And I'm sure if you party, yours will too. Now, instead of blowing your hard-earned cash, maybe try and invest in something more meaningful. Because a lot of the time, people party because they're trying to escape from life and life's responsibilities. Now, don't get me wrong, you can still party, but just do it in moderation. But if you don't, you're gonna end up broke and unhappy in your 30s. And the next one is step 3, get a bad college degree. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I never finished high school, but as I've gotten older, I now realize how important education is. When you look at the rich and the poor, what makes a difference is education. So when you look at countries like Australia, like the US, like UK, you'll find they normally have better education, which leads to better paying jobs. And when you look at the poor countries, a lot of the poor countries don't have access to good education, which normally leads to low paying jobs being the norm. But with education, not all degrees are made equal, not even close. I remember when I was in school, teachers and society would always push you to get a degree, go to university, but it's not always the smartest option. And it's definitely not the smartest option if you don't know what to do. Sometimes taking a break between high school and college is important because you can reflect on what you want to do with your life. If you don't do that, sometimes what can happen is you end up going to college, getting a degree for something that you don't love, with a massive debt and in a low-paying career that's not going to pay the wages. I'm not saying don't go to college. I think college is important, but think about what you're going to go and study. And if you think about what you're going to go and study, you're going to get a job that's more fulfilling. Otherwise, you're going to be in a career that you don't love and you're going to end up unhappy and miserable in your 30s. And this next one can haunt you for life, and that is step 4, and don't take your finances seriously. So most people get their first well-paying job in their 20s and they immediately scale up their lifestyle. They buy a nice car, they move into a nicer apartment, they eat out every night, and this leaves little or no room for saving and investing. Then they say things like, I'm young, I'm single, I don't need to worry about investing until my 30s. And I say to them, look, that's a devastating mistake because time in investing is your best friend. The longer you're invested, the sooner you'll be able to retire. And when you get your first proper paying job, it's probably time to start learning about money. So what would I suggest? Read The Richest Man in Babylon, ask your parents if they're investing, jump on YouTube and search investing for beginners. Because the sooner you learn about money, the sooner you'll start saving, the sooner you'll start investing, and the sooner you'll have compound interest working for you. But if you don't, like most people, and delay this until their 30s, the problem is they're probably going to be playing catch up for a lifetime and have little or no money in retirement. Ga 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 ga. And the next one's related, and that's step 5, and that's fall for consumerism. And what is that? It's buying shit you don't need. You go out and buy that new car. You go out and buy those new clothes. You go out and buy the latest and greatest of things. If it doesn't make you money, if it doesn't buy you back your time, if it doesn't make you happy, don't buy it. Just because you got that raise, it doesn't mean that you need to spend more money. In fact, in your 20s, it's probably best to be a tight ass so you can set yourself up for the future. If you're in your 20s, in your late 20s, and you're still living at home, if you're buying secondhand cars and you're eating baked beans on toast, that is completely okay. But if you're in your mid-30s and you're still living at home, something needs to change. What I suggest is don't be a consumer, be a saver and investor instead. If you keep going out and buying all this rubbish that you don't need, you're probably going to end up working until your deathbed. The next mistake's going to cost you deeply, and that's step 6, and that's don't take any risk. So in your 20s, it's the best time to try a bunch and figure out what you want to do. And for many people, our 20s are the only real opportunity we get to take big risks. Because in your 20s, it's the time that you get your normal first paying job and you don't really have any responsibilities, right? When you don't have many responsibilities, it's a great opportunity to go after your goals and to go after your dreams and search for the life that you want. So often people get to their 30s, they end up married, they have children, and they end up with a huge mortgage and responsibility. And this leaves little or no room to take risks, like starting a business. Now, I'm not saying take stupid risks, I'm saying take smart, calculated risks. So think about what you want. Think about the steps that you need to take, and then just go and do it and take the risk. Because if you don't take the risk in your 20s, you'll probably end up wondering about the life that could have been. So the next step is what most people do, and that's step 7, and that's wasting a lot of time. So let's be honest here, how many of you waste away day after day procrastinating on what you should be doing? When you get home from work, you sit there and scroll on TikTok for 3 hours instead of working on something more important. I'm not going to say wasting time is bad or anything like that, but if you want to live an extraordinary life and have a great life in your 30s and beyond, you should probably replace that scrolling for 3 hours with working on your dreams. If I had kept playing Counter-Strike for 40 hours a week and not working on my goals, I definitely would have ruined my life in my 20s and I wouldn't be where I am today. So I think it's important to value your time and pay attention to how you're spending time. And if you're sitting there scrolling, replace it with something of value. And this next one we're all guilty of, and that's step 8 and chasing the vices. We're talking about smoking, we're talking about drinking, we're talking about gambling, we're talking about porno. All these little things are addictive because they're a little dopamine hit that causes you to want more. Now, I'm not saying these are necessarily bad in moderation, but too often we indulge in excess. Many guys in their 20s get addicted to the vices and it kills their health, it kills their wealth, and it kills their relationships. They become dependent on smoking, on drinking, on drugs, on gambling. They blow all their money away. And when you become dependent upon these things and when you become addicted, it's so hard to break free from the chains of addiction. You'll end up ruining your life, constantly chasing the vices instead of pursuing a life that's full of meaning. Chase meaning, not vices, and you'll be on the path to success in your 30s. And this next one follows on nicely, and that's step 9, and that's chasing women. For many of us, including myself, chasing women in our 20s is usually riddled with silly mistakes. Now, I don't know if this is a common mistake, but it's one I made. I allowed the pursuit of women dominate my life. And I mean that in the shallowest of ways. So what did I do? I used to go out from Thursday night to Saturday night with the intention of hooking up with multiple women. Then I'd end up in these toxic relationships with women that I didn't really know. They'd cheat on me, I'd cheat on them. It was just very toxic. And if you're not smart about it, you're gonna end up with kids with a woman that you don't even know, right? I think so often people get in relationships with another male or female just because they're hot and they don't even really know them. And when they get to know them, they realize that person's not for them. But what happens is most people stay in these relationships in their 20s with someone that they don't really like, someone that they don't know. That person pulls them down and that person stops them from realizing their potential. And what happens? You end up miserable in your 20s and your 30s and beyond. Now, of course, finding your life partner is important, but just don't do dumb shit with people that you don't really know. For me, I personally believe that finding your life partner is one of the most meaningful and fulfilling things you'll ever do. They help you realize your potential and be the best that you can be. And lastly, step 10, neglect your physical health. And I'm not going to spend too much time here because you know this already, but you need to develop healthy habits for eating and fitness. If you develop poor eating habits and fitness habits in your 20s, these are going to carry to your 30s and beyond. Then before you know it, you put on 30 kilos and you can barely walk up the steps. When you're younger, you might be able to eat whatever you want and stay fit. But as you get older, things tend to slow down. Develop good habits now so that as you get older, you don't end up with a dad bod and a double chin. If you neglect your health now, you're gonna pay for it in your 30s. So there's the guide how to screw up your 20s in 10 simple steps. Surround yourself with the wrong crowd, party too much, get a bad college degree, don't take your finances seriously, fall for consumerism, don't take any risks, waste a lot of time, chase the vices, chase women, and neglect your physical health. Let me know what you think of this list and put a comment down below of anything you would add. And if you're ready to improve your life, click on this next video. Other than that, thanks for watching.